So, we basically have established that in order to discover where you can meet and start a relationship with your significant other, first one must basically decode their life code. And that will lead to the information that they require to do that. But of course that's easier said than done. When you look at your life code, you have to be able to determine what things are originally a part of your life code or placed there by an outside force. And that requires a level of being objectable that most people have a hard time doing. When you look at yourself in the mirror, depending on your self-image, that determines what you will see. If you look at yourself in the mirror and you have low self-esteem, you're going to see a nose that's too big, you're going to see thighs that are too fat, you're going to see skin that is too pale, you're going to see eyes that aren't big, or, you know, ears that are too big, or, you know, you'll see things about yourself that you dislike. If you have an overinflated sense of self-esteem, you're going to look at yourself and say, I look better than everyone I know. Look at me. I'm skinnier than my friend blank. I'm more muscle toned than that guy at the gym. And you're going to compare yourself to others in a negative way that is somewhat narcissistic, or you're going to obsess on, well, I'm so attractive, I deserve special treatment, those type of things. It's difficult, nigh impossible, to look at oneself with such truth and honesty that you see what is really you and what is perception of you that you've learned to accept. When executing the love spell, if you don't have a healthy sense of what is in your code and what is outside of your code, you will not be able to detect the elements that are inside of your life code that are actually possibly deflecting any chance of finding a romantic relationship. For example, if you are someone who has an idea that you if you have the idea that you need someone to take care of you, and you learned that because someone at some point in your childhood or some point in your life told you that you were incapable of taking care of yourself, then when you look for a significant other, when you look for your soulmate, when you look for a partner, you will not find what is right for you. You will find what is based on the false information that you received at an early age. So when I was first executing this spell and coming to this concept, it was easy for me because I was a child. I was 14 years old, so there wasn't very much in my life that wasn't new. So I would sit and I would meditate on the elements of myself that were me, because I wanted to know that. It had nothing to do with the true love spell, but this was something that I just wanted to know about myself. And I discovered that even at the age of at the tender age of 14, there were still things that were inserted inside of my person that I picked up along the way, contaminants, code contaminants, that was not part of me. I would suggest, if you have the resources, to focus on yourself. Focus on the things that are in you that could use improvement, that could use change. And I'm not talking about I want to make more money or I want to lose weight. I'm talking about the things in your spirit. Has your spirit been wounded in any way that could eventually lead to misdirecting you when trying to decode your life? Is there anything in your life that could be holding you back in this way? So that that's a big, it's a big start in, you know, this level of self-honesty is a big part of finding your soulmate. And I've always noticed that even when I was executing this spell and I was not looking for any attention from men, when I was in the process of focusing my energies inward and decoding myself and trying to find out how to make myself as authentically me as possible, for some reason this switched my frequency so that men were attracted to me, which could be a problem, because then the wrong men would be attracted and I'd say, oh great, I'm done, and I'd stop the work right there in the middle. I wouldn't commit to it and I'd start dating. That's another point that I would like to make. In doing this process, if you are committed to discovering your life partner for life, stop dating. Stop dating right now. Don't date until you've deciphered your own code. Because this code is key to discovering the type of person that is compatible with you and that is good for you. If you do not decipher the code properly and you date prematurely, there is a chance that you can attract people into your life that are not on the right frequency that is best for you. Just think of it as mixing paints. Mixing paint, okay? If you are trying to create aquamarine, you will take elements of blue, elements of green, maybe a little bit of yellow. You probably wouldn't add very much red. But if you had red in there, you're not going to have the right color frequency to make aquamarine. So this is all about balance and levels and what types of things in your life. If you can focus on these things and then you pair it up with the actual rituals and magic element, this is how you get success. From a non-magical perspective, even a psychologist or a psychiatrist would tell you, working through your own individual problems as a human being and finding the way to function at your top level of health is more likely going to help you in finding a happy, healthy relationship than if you are carrying all of this extra luggage, as they would say. To me, as a witch, I see it even more so as a frequency thing. These luggages change your frequency. It contaminates it. You have to purify it as much as you can. And don't get me wrong, you don't have to be a perfect person in order to do this. You don't have to be 100% well-adjusted with no flaws. But you have to have some key concept of who you are before you can decide who can exist with you. You see. So focus on, meditate. Try to keep a diary. Get counseling if that's what you think it'll take. Try to discover what parts of yourself are really you. I'll give you a good example of a code contamination on my part. By nature, by myself, I'm extremely sensitive. I don't like conflict. I am because of my sensitivity, I tend not to want to speak in a harsh way towards people, or argue with people, or say anything negative towards anyone. I was taught by life experiences that you have to be tougher and meaner if you're going to survive in this world. And so I developed personality traits about being loud, outspoken. My culture had a lot to do with it. I'm Hispanic, so you know, Latina girls are very like tough, and especially if you come from New York, where I came from, you have this idea that you got to be like, oh no, that girl's not going to mess with me. Those were foreign contaminants that I've adapted into my personality that weren't originally there, and they blended into who I am as a person. Now, if my soulmate, let's say his code was untampered, because remember, their code is going to be tampered as well. Let's say, even if his code wasn't tampered and he was looking for the code that matched my frequency, because I'm sitting here being this little tough Latina girl, he's not going to recognize me. He's not going to recognize me. I'm going to look like a different person to him. So it's the same basic principle. I'm also, despite not necessarily wanting confrontation, I'm also very intense when it comes to something I strongly believe in. And I would have an opinion and be very strong about it and say, no, this is the way it is. When I was a child growing up, I learned that that could actually get you in trouble. So I became more amiable in that respect. And so I would not say things that I believed. I would say, oh, sure, whatever anybody wants, sure. You know, I don't want to get in a fight with you, man. You want to get in a fight with me, then I'm going to get all nasty. But I just don't want to fight, instead of having a real conversation that was even a debate, that was educated and didn't involve emotion. You know, I didn't learn how to do that because of this contamination in my code. So this is just an example of my code that has been tampered with over time. I'm sure there are plenty others, but you get the picture. If you can look inwardly and see the things that are authentically you versus the things that you learned as a child. Being a child, you learned a lot of things, and being an adult, you learned a lot of things, and being an adolescent, you learned a lot of things that are not a part of who you are. So try to decipher those things through meditation, through counseling, keeping a record, a diary, and that's one first step in the right direction. Remember, when you are executing a magical spell, you first cleanse the space. This is our way of cleansing the space of your mind, your heart, your pneuma, so that beautiful things can happen.